A man stands in the middle of a cracked, barren wheat field, rubbing dry dirt between his calloused fingers. Untouched, abandoned, ignored. Most people read the short, two-chapter book of the prophet Haggai and assume it is just a historical construction mandate. The only thing that arrives is a heavier emptiness. Yet the story of Haggai does not end in the famine. 23 days after the prophet delivers his first devastating sermon, something finally breaks inside the human heart. The people wake up. They turn around. They look at the 16 years of overgrown weeds, and they walk toward the mountain. They pick up the heavy, dirt-covered stones, and the moment their hands touch the rubble, God speaks a second time. He gives them a promise about the future of this broken building, and he anchors it on a single Hebrew word that completely redefines the nature of what they are actually constructing. A month passes. The people obey. They walk into the ruins. They clear the choked weeds. They drag the dusty limestone blocks. They swing the iron hammers. But a new problem infects the camp. Comparison. The foundation is small. The walls are plain. The timber is local. There is no imported cedar. There is no massive bronze sea. There is no gold-plated inner sanctum. The men who remember Solomon's temple weep aloud. They look at this modest reconstruction. They look at their blistered hands. It feels entirely inadequate. The old temple smelled of costly incense. This temple smells of dirt. It smells of sweat. It smells of poverty. Then Haggai steps up again. Chapter 2, verse 9. God speaks directly into their disappointment. He makes a stunning claim. They read it as a divine guilt trip for a selfish generation of Israelites who cared more about paneling their own ceilings with expensive cedar. The glory of this present house will be greater than the glory of the former house. The word our English Bibles translate as glory is the Hebrew noun kavod. When a modern reader hears the word glory, they think of light. They think of a blinding aura. They think of pristine beauty. They think of Solomon's gold reflecting the midday sun. But the Hebrew kavod does not mean shiny. It does not mean expensive. It does not mean bright. The root of kavod literally means heavy. It means weight. It means density. It means a physical substance so massive it cannot be moved. You use kavod for a boulder you cannot lift. You use kavod for a shield that stops an iron spear. You use kavod for a reality that crushes a lesser reality. It is the same root used to describe Eli, the priest falling backward from his seat because he was a heavy man. It is the exact concept Paul will translate into Greek centuries later when he writes to the Corinthians about an eternal weight of glory. That root changes everything. The exiles are crying over the lack of aesthetic beauty. They are mourning the missing gold. But Yahweh is completely unconcerned with architectural aesthetics. He is promising a heavier presence. Kavod is not a visual spectacle you admire from a distance, than building a house for the God who rescued them. A straightforward, somewhat dry story about ancient, misplaced priorities. Financial stewardship. It is a gravitational force that alters the orbit of your life. God is telling them that this plain, unpolished, dirt-floored building will hold a heavier weight of his presence than the cedar-lined palace of Solomon ever did. Because this time, the weight will not be contained in a wooden box behind a woven curtain. The weight is going to walk through the doors in human flesh. But the older generation cannot see the weight. They can only see the missing gold. The dust settles over the rocky plateau of Mount Moriah. A deafening, chaotic noise rises into the Judean air, a sound so fractured that the people standing in the surrounding valleys cannot distinguish the shouts of joy from the sounds of weeping. The younger men, who only know the bitter stories of Babylon and the long, exhausting walk home, are screaming in triumph. They are watching the rough, unhewn limestone blocks slide into place. To them, the raw stone is a miracle. But the older men, leaning on heavy wooden staffs, with tears cutting muddy tracks through the thick white dust on their wrinkled faces, are wailing in profound despair. They remember the temple before the Babylonian fire. They remember the sheer, terrifying scale of Solomon's architectural masterpiece. They remember the blinding reflection of the gold overlays, the intricate carvings of cherubim, the rich, heavy smell of imported Lebanese timber burning in the holy place, and the importance of putting God first. And it does carry that weight sometimes. But if you look closer at the exact Hebrew words, they look at this modest, dirt-floored reconstruction, and their hearts break. God addresses this exact paralyzing sorrow in the 3rd verse of chapter 2. He asks them directly, "Who is left among you who saw this house in its former glory? How does it look to you now? Does it not seem to you like nothing?" He does not condemn their memory, but he refuses to let it stop the hammers. He knows exactly what is happening in the minds of the older generation. Nostalgia is lying to them. It is editing out the deep, systemic failures of Solomon's era and amplifying the aesthetics, creating an impossible standard that is actively murdering the miracle of the present moment. They are dropping their iron tools because the raw stone hurts their calloused hands and insults their polished memory. The tears of the elders are not a righteous mourning for the holiness of God. They are the toxic paralyzation of nostalgia. They are trapped in the belief that if God does not repeat the past exactly as they remember it, then God is not present in the rubble. They are holding the new, unpolished stones of the present and rejecting them because they do not shine like the memory of what was lost. But Yahweh is making something entirely new, something that does not require gold to hold the heavy kavod of his spirit, describing the curse on their fields, at the strange psychology of their excuses, at the terrifying phrase God uses to explain why. He commands them to be strong, to work, and to remember the covenant made when they walked out of Egypt. He is preparing to violently shake the heavens, the earth, the sea, and the dry land. He is preparing to overthrow the thrones of kingdoms and shatter the power of foreign empires, clearing the stage for a king who will not need a cedar palace to rule. And to seal that cosmic promise, God turns his attention away from the weeping crowd. He locks eyes with a single man, Zerubbabel, the governor, a tired, broken descendant of the royal line of David. He gives him a promise that has nothing to do with architecture and everything to do with a piece of ancient jewelry. The object is small. The object is heavy. It is carved from hard stone. It is cast in cold bronze. In the ancient Near East, a signet ring is not decoration. It is a signature. It is the absolute authority of the crown. You press the engraved stone into hot, red wax. The document becomes law. The empire moves. The king's will is executed. Decades before Haggai, a prophet named Jeremiah stood before a failing king. The king's name was Jehoiachin. He was Zerubbabel's grandfather. The message Jeremiah delivered was a death sentence for the royal line of David. Yahweh looked at the corrupt king and spoke a terrifying vow. The heavens slammed shut. You start to see something the construction project reading completely misses. This text is not about architecture. He said that even if Jehoiachin were the signet ring on his right hand, God would pull him off and throw him away. God ripped the ring off his finger. He hurled it into the Babylonian dirt. The Babylonians came. The city burned. The people were marched away in heavy iron chains. The crown was crushed. The throne was shattered. The royal bloodline was violently severed. For 70 years, the descendants of David wore slave shackles instead of royal robes. The promise made to David felt like a cruel joke. The ring was lost in the ashes. And now, Haggai stands in front of Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel is not a king. He is a mid-level Persian governor. He is managing a group of exhausted refugees. He is staring at a dirt-floored construction site. He is a man who knows his family name, is a cursed, broken thing. But God speaks the final, stunning sentence of the prophet's scroll. On that day, declares the Lord of hosts, I will take you, Zerubbabel my servant, and I will make you like a signet ring, for I have chosen you. The exile was not an erasure. It was a forge. God is bending down into the dust of Jerusalem. He is picking up the discarded ring. He is placing it back on his right hand. The curse spoken by Jeremiah is reversed. The severed bloodline is fused back together. The discarded family is reclaimed. It is about allegiance. It is about what happens when a people survive a trauma, receive a miracle, and then slowly drift. Zerubbabel does not get a crown. He gets something infinitely heavier. He becomes the human seal of God's authority on earth. Through this exhausted, unimpressive governor, the line of David survives the rubble. The genealogy continues. The thread remains intact, weaving its way through centuries of Greek conquests and Roman occupations, until it arrives at a manger in Bethlehem. The physical temple Haggai forced them to build will eventually be torn down again by Roman swords. But the signet ring points to a structure that cannot be crushed by human hands. 50,000 exiles walked across the desert and dropped their heavy iron hammers in the rubble. A terrified nation chased the security of cedar ceilings and found only a leather purse full of holes. A people turned their face toward the cracking dirt, and the Judean sky turned to solid bronze. A prophet pointed his finger at their misplaced allegiance, and a spiritually numb city finally woke up. The weeping elders mourned the missing gold, and Yahweh promised a heavier, crushing weight. A cursed family line was thrown into the Babylonian ashes, and God picked it up as a royal signet ring. A modest, dirt-floored sanctuary was rebuilt from the ruins, and centuries later, the true temple walked through its doors in human flesh. One thread, one story. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the torn pouch. The heavy silver coins slipping silently through the stitched leather into the dust, into a state of spiritual numbness so deep that they don't even realize they are starving themselves to death. Not because God was trying to destroy them, not because he was petty, because he loved them enough to ruin the idol that was quietly killing them. If you are in a season where the math never seems to work, if you are exhausted from locking your panna, your face, your absolute allegiance onto the phantom harvest of a salary, title, its tittery, or a perfectly secure life, if the harder you grip the security of this world, the faster it falls through your fingers. Stop building the paneled house. Turn your face back to the mountain, and may the God who violently loves you enough to dry out your idols meet you in the rubble of your misplaced priorities and give you a weight of glory that no torn purse can ever lose. If this opens something in you, subscribe. Leave a comment, even one word helps. Share this with someone who is exhausted from building their own empire. Pray for us as we keep digging into these texts. Haggai is not a book about assembling a physical building. It is the autopsy of a distracted heart. To find the cure, you have to understand the timeline. You have to step back into the dust of a ruined Jerusalem. He is part of a miracle. He is one of the Jewish exiles who walked hundreds of miles out of Babylon to return to a promised land and feel the weight of an exhausted people who started with fire in their bones and ended up staring at empty bank accounts, wondering where God went. The place to start is not the prophet's first sermon. It is the 16 years of agonizing silence that came before he finally opened his mouth. 50,000 exiles make the treacherous journey across the ancient Near East, carrying the weight of a monumental mandate. The Persian Emperor Cyrus has signed the decree. The funding has been secured. The mission is clear. They arrive in the desolate, burned-out remains of Jerusalem, clear away the debris of the Babylonian siege, and manage to lay the stone foundation of the new temple. There is singing. There is the smell of freshly cut cedar from Lebanon, mixing with the dust of the ruined city. There is the metallic ring of hammers echoing off the surrounding hills. And then, the hammers stop. Opposition arises from the surrounding regions. Bureaucratic red tape snarls the supply chains. Threatening letters are sent to the Persian capital. The political climate grows hostile, and the exiles, exhausted from the journey and intimidated by the resistance, put down their tools. They step away from the foundation. They tell themselves it is just a temporary pause until the political winds shift. But a month becomes a year becomes 5 becomes a decade. And before anyone realizes what is happening, 16 years of absolute silence swallow the building project that his grandparents had lost. They came back to rebuild. They came back to restore the glory. But the Judean sun is merciless. 16 years is a long time to stare at an empty foundation. In the ancient world, the temple was the literal epicenter of reality. It was where heaven intersected with earth, where order was maintained against chaos, where the presence of the divine dwelled in the midst of the human condition. To leave it unfinished was to leave a gaping wound in the center of their national identity. Yet, the Israelites adapt. They do what humans always do when a holy calling becomes difficult. They pivot to personal security. They begin building their own homes, and not just basic shelters, to survive the Judean winters. The text in Haggai tells us they are living in paneled houses, a luxury usually reserved for kings and palaces. Utilizing the very cedar timber that should have been covering the inner walls of the sanctuary, they pour their energy, their wealth, and their sweat into securing their own comfort while the house of God sits exposed to the rain, choked by 16 years of creeping thistles. The ruins were not a monument to atheism. They were a monument to distraction. The people of Jerusalem did not wake up one morning and decide to hate Yahweh. They did not hold a council and formally reject the God who brought them out of captivity. They just looked at the massive, daunting stones of the Temple Mount, looked at their own. The sky has been like solid bronze for months. He walks toward his vineyard, but the grapes have withered into hard, black pebbles on the vine, unprotected families, and decided that survival required a shift in priorities. Their excuse, recorded in the very first chapter of the prophet's scroll, is hauntingly practical. The time has not yet come to rebuild the Lord's house. It is the theology of someday. Someday, when the economy stabilizes, we will build it. Someday, when the political opposition dies down, we will return to the altar. Someday, when our own houses are secure and our storage bins are full, we will give God the attention He deserves. But Yahweh does not wait for their timeline. He responds to their delay by dismantling the very security they are trying to build. And the method He uses to tear down their wealth is hiding in one of the most vivid economic metaphors in the entire Old Testament. A prophet steps into the ruined streets of Jerusalem. His name is Haggai. He does not bring a soft word. He does not offer comfort. He points to the sky above them. It is solid iron. He points to the earth beneath them. It is baked dust. He looks at the exhausted men and women of Israel. They are working themselves to the bone. They wake up before the sun crests the Mount of Olives. They plant heavy bags of expensive seed. They swing iron scythes under the burning Judean heat. The sweat stings their eyes. He turns to his olive grove, where the branches are brittle and stripped bare by the hot wind. The dirt cracks under their leather sandals. But the math never works. You sow much. You bring in little. You eat. You are never full. You drink. You are never satisfied. You put on heavy coats. You still shiver in the dark. And then, the prophet delivers the most devastating image of the entire oracle. The wage earner takes his pay. He drops the heavy silver coins into his pouch. But the pouch is torn. The pouch has holes. The silver slips through the stitched leather. It falls silently into the dirt. Nothing stays. Nothing lasts. The harder they grip their security, the faster it dissolves. They think they are experiencing a harsh climate cycle. They think it is just a bad agricultural season. They blame the Babylonian supply chain. They blame the Persian taxes. They blame everything they can see with their physical eyes. But Haggai shatters their excuses in a single breath. He tells them exactly who is blowing the harvest away. Yahweh is. God Himself is commanding the clouds to withhold the dew. God is calling for the drought to choke the mountains. The grain, the new wine, and the oil. He is the one drying out the ground. He is the one blowing the silver out of their hands. The famine is not a natural disaster. It is a divine blockade. They thought they were protecting their families by abandoning the temple project. They thought they were being pragmatic, responsible, and safe. He reaches into his leather pouch to pull out the few silver coins he earned that morning. But their safety strategy is exactly what triggered their starvation. Because when the center of their worship collapsed, the edges of their lives began to fray. They built thick roofs over their own heads. The rain stopped falling on their fields. They paneled their living rooms with imported cedar. The olive branches withered and died. They secured their own borders. The blessing leaked out the bottom of their torn purses. It is a terrifying spiritual law. The faster you run from the altar to build your own empire, the faster that empire turns to ash. You cannot outwork the opposition of heaven. But the question is, why? Why would God actively destroy the livelihood of the people he just rescued? From 70 years of Babylonian exile, why not just let them settle down? To find the answer, you have to look at the specific Hebrew word God uses when he finally tells them to go back up the mountain. But the detail that changes everything is hiding in the exact wording of God's diagnosis in chapter 1. Verse 9. Haggai delivers the message from Yahweh, describing the bitter futility of their 16-year struggle. The English translations usually render the phrase like this: "You looked for much, and behold, it came to little." It sounds like a simple statement of economic disappointment. You expected a massive crop yield, and you got a handful of dust. But his fingers slip through a tear in the bottom. He touches empty air. The wages are gone. The harvest is dead. But the word our English Bibles translate as looked or expected is the Hebrew verb panna. It is a word that carries a heavy, physical weight in the ancient text. Its root is panim, the Hebrew noun for face. Panna does not just mean to passively anticipate a result. It means to physically turn your head toward something, to stare at it, to orient your entire body, your vision, and the trajectory of your life in one specific, unwavering direction. It is the exact same root found in the famous priestly blessing from the book of Numbers. May the Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. To turn the face is to grant absolute presence. It is to give something your ultimate allegiance. If watching these ancient words open up is stirring questions you have never considered, you are exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe. Because every week we go deeper into the original text than you knew was possible. So Yahweh reveals the true nature of their crime. That root changes everything. When God says, "You panna for much," he is not critiquing their agricultural business plan. He is indicting their worship. They had taken the face they were supposed to turn toward the Holy of Holies, and they had locked their gaze onto the heavy. The rain refuses to fall. Same pattern again and again. He looks up at the center of Jerusalem, cracked soil of their own fields. They were seeking ultimate security from the dirt instead of the sovereign. They had made a god out of the harvest. And the true God refuses to share his airspace with an idol. The ruined harvest is not an act of divine vengeance. It is an act of divine jealousy. God was blowing the silver out of their hands because their hands had let go of the altar to grab the coins. He was drying out the sky because the people had turned their faces away from the temple to stare at their bank accounts. But this ancient diagnosis is not locked in the dust of the Persian Empire. You wake up before the alarm rings, staring at the glowing blue numbers in a dark bedroom. You carry the tension of the month's bills in your tight jaw. You drink the cold coffee. You work the extra hours. You chase the promotion. You pad the savings account. You secure the perimeter of your life. And yet, the math never seems to work. You are living the ancient prophecy. You look for much, and it comes to little. The money leaves the bank account as fast as it enters. The profound peace you were absolutely certain the new house, or the new salary, or the new title would bring, evaporates the moment you unlock the door. There, sitting quietly under 16 years of overgrown weeds, creeping vines, and scattered rubble, is the massive stone foundation of the temple of God. You bring the harvest home, and it turns to ash in your hands. The exhaustion in your bones is not a badge of honor. It is the symptom of a misplaced face. You have taken the panna, the orientation of your soul, the stare of your ultimate allegiance, and locked it onto the phantom harvest of this world. You are trying to squeeze eternal security out of a temporal field, and the God who created you refuses to let you succeed at an idol. He will blow the silver out of the torn pouch. He will let the sky turn to bronze. He will frustrate your empire building. Not because he is angry with you, but because he is violently committed to your actual survival. He knows that if you find peace in the paneled house, you will never return to the altar. We tell ourselves the exact same lie the exiles whispered in the ruins of Jerusalem. The theology of someday. Someday. When the kids are older, I will seek the silence of God. Someday. When the debt is finally cleared, I will rebuild the ruined sanctuary in my chest. Someday. When my own kingdom is secure, I will turn my face back to his. But the timeline of someday never arrives.